All right, so today we're taking a deep dive into a film where beauty and horror, they kind of like collide, Black
Yeah.
Swan. And you sent me these articles about like the film's Gothic side.
hmm
And
hmm
I guess I'm really intrigued by like how all these elements work together to create this like really intense psychological experience for the viewer.
Right.
It's pretty amazing. We're talking about a ballet film
Yeah.
that managed to become this critically acclaimed psychological thriller.
Totally. And we can't forget about Natalie Portman's performance of the film. I mean, she won an Oscar for her role as Nina.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And that's no easy feat, considering how demanding and nuanced her role was.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it was amazing. One of the articles you sent over describes Black Swan as, and this is a quote, a psychological horror film wrapped in Gothic
All
themes.
right.
So it's not just using like spooky settings or anything like that.
Yeah.
How do you think the film really taps into those classic Gothic themes in a way that makes it so like deeply unsettling?
Well, Gothic literature really, it often explores themes like decay and obsession and transformation.
Hmm.
And all of those themes are like pulsating through Black Swan.
Yeah.
And Nina, I mean, she's driven to the brink, right? She wants to be perfect. And
Hmm.
so she really embodies that classic, like, Gothic heroine.
Yeah, and it's interesting because the source material also refers to Nina's transformation into the Black Swan as both beautiful and grotesque.
Right, right.
So how do you think the film visually represents something that feels so paradoxical,
Right.
right? Like on the one hand, it's beautiful, and on the other, it's grotesque.
Yeah.
How does it do both?
I think it's actually brilliant the way they do it. They use like classic Gothic imagery, things like mirrors and shadows,
Hmm.
and you see that duality play out, right? Like when Nina looks in the mirror, we often see a distorted version of herself,
Right.
and it hints at like her fractured psyche.
And then there's that double motif,
Right.
which is, this idea that Nina has a dark side, and
Mhm.
it's literally taking shape as we watch the film.
Yeah.
So, it's like we're watching her descent into madness visually.
Hmm.
And that's something that Gothic literature has always been really good at portraying.
Yeah, for sure. It's really interesting how the ballet world, which we usually associate with like elegance and grace,
Right.
it's almost like it becomes this Gothic prison in the film.
Yeah.
So, for the listener, can you maybe elaborate on that a little bit? How does the film transform this seemingly refined world into something so oppressive?
Well, I think Black Swan is really clever in how it subverts our expectations of what the ballet world is.
Right,
Because there's so much pressure to be perfect.
right.
And there's that ruthless competition between the dancers. And then, of course, you have the director who's constantly scrutinizing them.
Right. And it all creates this really claustrophobic, almost suffocating atmosphere. It's like Nina's physically confined within the dance company, but she's also mentally imprisoned by her own ambition. She's obsessed with being perfect.
Yeah, and that really comes through in the film. One thing that really stood out to me in the notes you sent over was how the film explores that theme of duality, especially with the White Swan and the Black Swan.
Right.
How do you think that plays into the whole Gothic tone of the film?
Oh, that's a great observation.
Yeah.
Yeah. The White Swan and the Black Swan, they really embody these like conflicting forces within Nina. The White Swan represents innocence, purity, and control. But then you have the Black Swan who embodies passion, sensuality, and a loss of control.
Mm.
And this struggle between these two opposing forces, well, it's a key element in Gothic literature. It's this idea that characters are often grappling with their hidden desires and their dark impulses.
Yeah, it's like the film is saying, hey, there's darkness in all of us, even in a world that seems as pure as ballet.
Right, exactly.
And, we haven't even touched on Nina's mother yet and that, like, suffocating control that she has
Oh, yeah.
over Nina.
The mother, she's like another classic Gothic trope, that overbearing, almost possessive love that seeks to keep Nina in this perpetual state of childhood innocence. It's almost like she wants to prevent Nina from embracing her full potential.
Right, and specifically those darker, more sensual aspects that are, represented by the Black Swan.
Exactly.
So, wow, we have all these fascinating Gothic elements in Black Swan.
Yeah.
The tormented heroine, the oppressive setting, the exploration of duality, the controlling mother figure. It's no wonder this film, like, really messed with our minds.
It really is a trip.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
So as our listeners reflect on Black Swan, what's, like, one final thought that you would want to leave them with?
I would say to think about how the film blurs reality and fantasy, because that really enhances that sense of psychological horror. Think about those scenes where it's unclear if what we're seeing is real or if it's just a hallucination.
Right.
I mean, how does that ambiguity contribute to the overall unsettling nature of the film? It's something to really think about.
It is. It is. Wow, great point.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for joining me on this deep dive.
Yeah, it was fun.
It was great. And to our listeners, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.
See you later.